You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luke, joined by Ben White and the venerable William Brad Alice. All right, Arizona wins today by 1 point, but I'm going to tell you all this right here. This was, I believe, the game that needed to happen for a variety of reasons. I do believe that it's fair to say that at this stage, we know who JDL is, and with all due respect, he's not good enough. Not saying that Noah Fifita is good enough, but guys, this was the performance that I think we needed to see. There needs to be a quarterback change right there. Ben, then Brad, what do you guys say?
Well, the good news is Arizona won. The bad news is it was much closer than it needed to be. The story is obviously going to be the quarterback situation, the injury to JDL. Noah Fifita comes in right away, looks calm, looks collective, looks good, gets Arizona back in that game in a really odd game just to begin with. I thought offensively they weren't able to do a whole ton, especially in that first quarter. That's been a trend this year, granted, but it carried over to the second half, and just how bad Stanford has played and what we've seen so far, it was just puzzling just to watch some of the struggles. And to your point, Mike, before JDL got hurt, a lot of missed throws, a lot of questionable throws, just a lot of indecisiveness from him. And it was really a bad version of JDL out there. And unfortunately, the injury happens. Noah Fifita comes in, and you're exactly right. I mean, regardless of what happened here, the story of the game is going to be the quarterback situation, and how do we go from here?
William?
Yeah, I mean, JDL was not, I mean, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's what he was responsible for, right? I think it was. He threw bad passes. He held on to the ball too long. He looked like he had no idea where to go with the football, so then he'd run around crazy trying to do his little street ball routine. And, you know, that works once a game, twice. He did over and over, and it looked like he checked down into the wrong play a few times. There was the play where he almost threw the pick on the sideline, and they said, well, he expected Lamonius Craig to turn outside, and he went inside. You know why he went inside? Because there was 2 defenders on the outside boundary. I mean, yeah, I mean, I have not seen anything from JDL this year that really, except maybe part of the second half against Mississippi State, that makes me think, okay, even if you look at it, yeah, I know it's a small sample size, but Fifita, 4 for 4, 47 yards, 11 yards, a completion. JDL was 6. So I would have no problem if they turn it over, or if they want to go, and I usually hate this, the platoon system, just to have Fifita prove he's the guy. But I think when you combine everything, the play these first 4 games, the lack of development that I've seen from JDL, and you throw in the issues this week with the judge in Hawaii, maybe it's time to just turn that page.
I think sometimes coaches get a little bit of a blind spot for certain players, and I think Rich Rod certainly did this with Brandon Dawkins when it was clear that Brandon Dawkins wasn't good enough to be a quarterback at the U of A level. Khalil Tate comes in, and immediately people are asking, why in the world wasn't Khalil Tate playing? I think there's going to be a little bit of this here with JDL and Noah Fifita. I'm not saying that Noah Fifita is going to take college football world by storm, but at the same time, I do think that there's going to be an aspect of, why wasn't this guy out here? Because, again, JDL, let's be honest here, has not been good at all this season. And I don't know that he has the credits built up to be able to go through this. Noah Fifita came right in, looked far more comfortable than JDL has this entire season. And I think this could be a little bit of that Brandon Dawkins, Khalil Tate 2.0.
I'll say this. Dawkins was probably better than JDL. People forget 2 weeks before he got hurt against Colorado, Dawkins put 60 up against UTEP. Dawkins was fine as long as his feet were set. When his feet weren't set, he was awful.
But he was a turnover machine, Brad. He had like 6 turnovers against Utah that following week.
Yeah, Dawkins was not great, but Dawkins obviously knew the offense better than Khalil Tate ever learned the offense. But I'm not sure I could say that about Fifita and JDL, because JDL is not overly comfortable in this offense, which is why he keeps running backwards. This is a quick read, quick release offense. This is a very pro style with even some elements of the West Coast. And he's trying to play like, well, frankly, like Khalil Tate, who's not allowed to run forward. So, yeah, I would have no problem with turning it over to Fifita, because he does look comfortable. Now, you know, we don't see him practice. We don't know what's being done, whether he struggles in meetings. But I like what I've seen from Fifita, and I would have no problem handing the reins to him.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that's got to be the case. It is. I can't tell you how many times I've had parents reach out to me, and players that are on this team saying that, listen, when this kid goes onto the field, he's not coming off. He said, I don't care how he's looked in practice. I don't care what it is. This kid is a total gamer, and he is a gamer of epic proportions. And these are highly ranked wide receivers out there. These are highly ranked players that have watched this young man since he was a child. And they've all to a man said the same thing, that this is a better quarterback than Jayden de Laura right there. They're not dissing Jayden de Laura, but they're saying he understands football in a way that Jayden de Laura doesn't understand football. And not only does he understand football in a way, he is somebody that gravitates toward, or that players gravitate towards. And I think you saw that out there. This is a guy that hasn't played all season. He comes in a meaningful drive, an incredibly meaningful drive, and marches Arizona right down the field for a touchdown. And when they need to put the game out of reach, he's the one that completed it. Guys, Ben, this is the dude that this needs to be his team going forward.
Well, it's hard to argue with what he did today. The sample size is still small, but I would argue without him, you don't win that game. I mean, JDL was in a situation where he wasn't able to drive the ball down the field at key times. Like Brad said, was missing easy throws, was forcing throws, should have thrown a pick six, only had one touchdown. When you look at the stats, I mean, nothing impressive, 14 to 26, 1 TD. And it really wasn't even that impressive from a number standpoint. The one thing that really threw me off is I just didn't understand why Arizona didn't establish the run early. That's one thing that really, I think, held them back, especially in that first half. It seemed like Jayden de Laura, for whatever reason, like we talked a little bit about against Mississippi State, he comes in with this mentality of, we're going to throw the ball, I'm going to make the big play. I don't care what it takes.
Right.
If we make mistakes, we make mistakes. And look, it's not all JDL. It's the play calling as well. But from a comfort standpoint, he just doesn't look comfortable out there. And Brad, you made the point on Twitter. I'd be curious to see, and it's hard to tell on TV, but when you're there, I'd be curious to see just what that backfield looked like. If these receivers were truly covered, if there was nowhere to go with the ball, because the only thing in his defense really on a lot of these throws would be, well, maybe there's nowhere to go with the ball. Just wasn't able to get the ball downfield consistently. And the thing that really hurts you is even the checkdowns, even the 5, 6, 7 yard passes. He wasn't either willing or able or both when it comes to doing that. So when you're not able to move the ball fluidly, I mean, Jedd Fisch has talked about it. Just play smart football. We've got the weapons. We've got the receivers. We've got the running backs. Make the one read, make the easy read, and keep things moving. And when Fifita came in, he didn't do anything spectacular, but he managed the game and he kept the ball moving. That's something JDL couldn't do today.
I will say this. I think in my book, spectacular is running out the clock, because we've seen Arizona teams unable to do that. So the fact that he made those two big completions, the one, I think it was Cowing stepped out a couple instead of maybe that's a safe play. You don't want to dive for the pylon or for the marker. But I will say this again. Someone in the chat just pointed out, they're like, why are they so conservative with the zone read? That's not they. That's the quarterback. The quarterback, right. The zone read is a read. And he's supposed to read the end or the linebacker, depending on what the read is on that play. Secondly, I don't know for sure, but I would say this. If Jedd Fisch's offense is like most NFL offenses, it really is JDL who's checking out of runs or not checking into runs. And there was a play where they just had a pretty good run, and 2 plays later, I counted 6 in the box. What does that tell you? Check down to the run. And he didn't. He threw a bad pass. I would be very interested if we do get to see Noah Fifita next week, whether that's because he wins the job or because JDL's hurt, which he might be. He's in a boot. Now, boot is also precaution. So take that for what it is. Does he throw to more receivers? Because tonight was what, 5 completions to different receivers, right, yep. And only 2 wide receivers. I guess 3 wide receivers, a running back and a tight end. 7 to Cowing, and then So you got to spread the ball around more. I'm sorry. If you've only got 2 receivers you're wanting to throw to, guess what teams are going to start doing? Double teaming those receivers, making you check down, making you get conservative. And, I don't know. Maybe that's a Jedd Fisch thing. My gut feeling now after the sample size is it might just be a JDL thing. He may just lock in on to a couple guys.
I think it's a JDL thing, and there's a variety of reasons here. Now, listen, I mean, JDL definitely doesn't stink. I'm not saying that. But Washington State was more than okay with moving on from him and bringing in a quarterback from Incarnate School or whatever that. Oh,
Who
Incarnate.
had an amazing game today, by the way.
Oh, I know. That's not meant to diminish him at all whatsoever. But he was the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, and they were more than okay with moving on from him. The other thing that I would also mention, though, with Fifita is Fifita looks comfortable out there. JDL looks kind of, there's way too many times with JDL where he looks like a chicken with his head cut off, where even if guys are open, he's not throwing it to him. He's running around. He's making all kinds of odd decisions, to put it mildly, out there. How many times was he running around for 20 yards and then trying to pitch the ball past the line of scrimmage so it wouldn't be a grounding penalty? Fifita comes in there, and there's a lot to be said again for coming in there and being comfortable. He just looked like he had been there before, even though he hadn't been there before. I think if Jedd Fisch, and again, this is coming from somebody that is a big fan of Jedd Fisch, but I think if Jedd Fisch were to start Jayden de Laura next week, he would start to lose people in this city. I really do.
Well, I mean, from a black and white standpoint, right? Because unfortunately, a lot of times we know football is not black and white, but sometimes coaches, they have their bias, they have their guys, right? They look at things from a black and white standpoint. If Arizona loses this game, if they lose some of these other games, right? If we're in a deeper hole than we are right now, maybe it's a little bit of a different story. I think with Washington, it's interesting because even if JDL is healthy and he plays and he has a bad game, is the narrative or the takeaway from the coaching staff going to be, it was Washington, we didn't expect to win this game, they had everything on us, we didn't expect JDL to do a ton, or no, JDL played really bad, 4 interceptions, etc. We got to make a change. So we just have to see, the way that this coaching staff is going to respond. Based off what, Fisch said after the Mississippi State game, there wasn't much of a flinch there. JDL is the guy, but like you said, Mike, we all know that if you keep going out there and if this team is even a little bit slightly better than what Stanford is today, they probably lose this game if JDL is the quarterback the whole time.
I don't believe Arizona wins this game, Brad, if JDL stays in there the whole game. What do you think? Brad, do you want to take that question? Or Ben, would you like that question? Brad, I don't believe
you guys broke up on me, so I don't know if it's my connection.
No, you're good. I don't believe that Arizona wins that game if JDL's in there the entire game. I don't believe they win that game.
Yeah, and again, JDL, it's weird because his stats are actually better completion percentage wise until today. Today, he just looked like he did not know what Stanford was throwing at him. He looked woefully unprepared for the coverages, which is why you got the running around with your chicken cut off, why you got him pitching the ball out of bounds, why you got him throwing in early on, throwing odd passes into bad coverages. He's a guy who came into the game throwing almost 70% of his passes completion, and today he was at low 50s and just looked confused. So again, I don't know if that's to me the biggest thing. He's a gifted athlete, but give me a smart quarterback who knows where to go with the ball than a guy who can force a few throws and maybe make a big play with his legs. My guess is, Fifita's not going to run around like that. He's going to get sacked a few times if de Laura doesn't. But he's probably also going to hit that 5-yard out when that's the only thing available and keep the chains moving, which this offense is really designed to do. This isn't a big play offense. This isn't a big strike offense. This is 5 minutes, 12 plays, 70 yards, and you cap it with a 3-yard Wiley run. That's what you kind of need to do.
All right, we got to Brad. I want to hit on something else you said here because we have Tony Jones, father of a player on this team. We've been saying this all year. You've got to play more than 3 wide receivers. And I don't know if it's a JDL thing or whatever the case may be, but in my opinion, Kevin Green, AJ Jones, Malachi Riley have to be in there more. You can't just play 3 wide receivers the entire season. I do believe too, if Noah Fifita is the quarterback, I do believe that this is going to be, it's going to be spread out more because I also have a hard time believing that just 2 guys are open the entire time. Maybe that's the case. I don't know, but I would be very curious as to what Jayden de Laura is actually seeing out there. Ben?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think.
Yeah, I mean, part of me wonders why, again, you threw to one running back.
Brad, why don't you try to hop back in here? You're definitely buffering right here. Why don't you try to hop back in here?
Okay, let me take off. I'll come back in.
Yeah. Okay, Ben, but Ben.
Yeah, to your point though, Mike, I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think just with the options you have out there, and especially when they go, 4 or 5 wide, right? There's a lot of guys out there. I have a hard time believing that there's not somewhere to go with the ball. They showed it at one point, and Yogi Roth made the point in the red zone where Arizona came short, and it's just timing, I think, for JDL. I think you drop back, and like we talked about with this offense, within 3 seconds, you need to be able to get rid of the football most of the time. And he missed, I think it was a wide open, I forget who the receiver was at the time, but he missed a wide open receiver.
Right.
I think JDL is somebody who likes to sit back there. I think he needs a little bit more time. I don't think he reads the field all that particularly quick. I think that's something he struggles with beyond 1 or 2 receivers, because we saw today with T-Mac. I mean, we almost saw a pick 6 there. The guy is notorious here. We've seen at Arizona for staring down receivers. I mean, that has been a problem for him. So I think it's a combination of, maybe some receivers aren't open, but I think that's maybe 10-15% of it. I think the other 85-90% of the situation is JDL just maybe doesn't feel comfortable with those reads. When his number 1 or even number 2 guy isn't open, he doesn't think quick enough to either use his legs or check it down. And then we see these types of situations where he's trying to force the ball downfield, or he's getting swarmed, he's getting sacked, he's not stepping up soon enough in that pocket to run. So many first downs today could have been had, especially in that first half, if the guy just stepped up and ran 4, 5, 6 yards. So to me, JDL is leaving a lot on the table.
Let's talk about using your feet here a little bit, because that's exactly where I was going to go. But first, BetMGM. Here's the deal. Sign up for BetMGM. Use bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM sportsbook wager through a BetMGM sportsbook mobile app of at least $10. You will receive $200 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for details. You might think, man, Mike Luke, this guy is a total putz. He knows nothing. You're probably right. You know what you do then? Go against what I'm telling you right here, because either way, you're probably going to make some money. But also, let's hear from the great Shane Diefenbach with the disclaimer.
Problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
All right, Ben, you hit on it, and Brad, I want to get your take on this. JDL also leaves a lot of yards on the table by not running the ball. There are so many times where you look ahead and you can just tell by watching on TV, dude, there's a first down right in front of you. And for whatever reason, he doesn't want to make that run. But this is something now that we've been dealing with for almost a season and a half now, where that's something that's just inherent in him, that he's not looking to make those runs that are right in front of it.
Yeah, I think the play that sums it up, there's one where he kept going backwards, where if he does that little curl move and then steps right up, he picks up, at worst, he gets to the line of scrimmage. He's probably got 7-8 yards. Instead, he went back 30, 35 yards and then threw it out of bounds, but maybe not to the line of scrimmage, but might have been out of the tackle. And Stanford coaches got irate. Just step up. Again, even if you're just going to get 2, 3, 4 yards, unless it's like 3rd and 20 and you have to have the play. But sometimes you just need to take the easy play and get those 5 yards, get those 7 yards, and keep the drive moving, or keep the chains from being backed up. Because 2nd and 7 is better than 2nd and 10. It sounds stupid, but it is.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's really kind of that simple for me. Well, also, too, and we're going to get to the defense here, because there's a lot of good and one very bad thing to take away from the defense right here. But the other thing, too, with Fifita is you just have an idea that he knows what the coaches want from him out there, that he looks like he's under control. And I'm going to keep coming back to this. There was a little bit of a poise factor there that you just don't see. You haven't seen from that you haven't seen from JDL at all, where Noah looked like he belonged out there. That's not an easy task for a guy who essentially hasn't played on a football field in the last season and a half. And he came right in there and he ended that game for the Wildcats right there. He did exactly what he needed to do. That is not something JDL's doing.
No, and Jedd Fisch even said after the game, AG put this up on Twitter, just talking about Fifita. It doesn't surprise me at all. He's unbelievable in terms of his preparation, in terms of focus, in terms of how much he loves football. There was no flinch. He knows what to do out there. So that goes to all you need to know when it comes to what the coaching staff thinks about him. He is the future for this program. I get there's other QBs in the mix, but I think the coaching staff feels pretty confident in rolling with him the next couple of years. And at least that's the vision right now. And then on the JDL front, like you said, Mike, when you're leaving easy yards on the table, when you can just step up and run, when you can just check the ball down and get first downs, this offense is built with the weapons it has to move the ball really easy. You have to find a pretty hard way to screw that up. And that's what's been so unfortunate about JDL is that regression from this year to last year. And we saw glimpses of it last year, but I at least felt, going towards the end of the second half of last year that he was making some improvements. And aside from that UTEP game, because I think it's hard to take away a lot from that just because of the nature of the competition there. But aside from that UTEP game, I think he's gotten worse.
Yes, he 1,000% has gotten worse. We'll get back to JDL, but also let's talk about the defense a little bit. But first, Circle K. Ben White, Brad Alice. When was the last time you've been to Circle K? Come clean. Come clean.
Yesterday when I had to get up at 6 a.m. to do a radio show with you.
That's what I like hearing. William Brad Alice, when did you last go?
Yesterday.
All right, that's what we like to hear. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details right there. Salim Stoudemire, we appreciate that, Jacob Franklin right there. All right, defense. Overall, I am ecstatic with where this defense is. We're going to get to one very glaring issue, but the defensive line I find good. They're able to get after the quarterback. The linebackers also very impressive as well. The DBs, the corners, I thought were good. There were a couple drop touchdowns, which obviously helped Arizona. I thought the defensive pass interference on Tacario Davis, I thought that was a terrible call. But overall, I got no problem with the defense through 4 games, guys. As a matter of fact, I think the defense is much better than I could have expected.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, there was a little bend, no break there today. Obviously, they benefited from the missed field goal, but they also got robbed of the interception in the end zone with that really questionable PI call. The fact of the matter is, Arizona scored 21 and 1.
Right.
They gave up 20. Should it have been 23? Okay. Still, either way, you give up 23 in the Pac-12, you should be winning football games. And the defense has played pretty well. They had some issues here and there today, but for the most part, they were really good. And a lot of Stanford's best plays were, ironically enough, their quarterback stepping up in the pocket because the pass rush was coming and picking up those extra yards. The thing we were just lamenting JDL for not doing. Bachmeier, I guess he's a better receiver than his brother is a quarterback. But overall,
I was waiting for somebody to make that comment. That was funny, William.
Overall, they gave up 20 points in a Pac-12 road game, and that's what you need to do because today the offense didn't have it.
Yep.
All right, Mike. Gunnar Maldanado. I'm not going to say anymore.
All right.
The floor is yours.
Gunnar Maldanado. I get that he had forced a fumble last week. I totally get all that, and that he ran it back for 22 yards. But at the end of the day, Gunnar Maldanado is not good enough to be out there on the football field. Every team knows where Gunnar Maldanado is at every single point, and that is not a good thing. Against Mississippi State, he didn't play in the first half. Guess what happened in the second half? The first time Mississippi State got the ball, they ran right down the field and scored a touchdown going right after Gunnar Maldanado. Stanford clearly was targeting him the entire time. Again, I'm sure he's a great kid, But Maldonado's got to be off the field right here. The defense has made too many strong improvements to have such a weak link out there. Maldonado, in my opinion, has got to be moved to the bench.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I can't. I mean,
ahead, Brad.
he gets the tackles. He makes tackles, but he's getting burned in coverage. So I can't see that maybe he has a better knowledge of the schemes than some of the other guys. I don't care. At some point, though, yeah, he's becoming a liability. And I don't care how smart he is or good a kid he is or how well he tackles. I'd kind of be willing to give him maybe 2 missed tackles, broken tackles a game if it means 2 or 3 less receptions to his guy. I think that's the trade-off.
And the problem too, Ben, is that teams are going after Maldonado. They know exactly where he is on the field, and time after time, game after game, he is being targeted. Again, I get that he forced a fumble. That was awesome. Totally appreciate all of that against Mississippi or against UTEP. But when you're giving up, when you're the first person around literally every midfield, sideline, downfield completion, you got to get off the field at some point there. And I don't know what the answer is, but I can definitely tell you it ain't him right there, Ben White.
Well, you've got to rotate. I mean, you've got to do something. Like Brad said, it's missed coverage has been the MO. But even today, he had a few missed tackles that resulted in some yards after the catch that shouldn't have been the case for Stanford. And what really worries you is not only do they know where he is, but they're going to put their best receiver or offensive threat, and they're going to scheme it in a way where that receiver is going to be exactly where Gunner is. And that's a disaster when you think about the receivers that Washington has, when you think about the receivers that USC has, when you think about even some of the receivers that teams like UCLA have, right? It could get ugly. It could get ugly. And I think obviously Norton was missing today. The defensive line, for the most part, held their will.
Who was missing?
In that,
Norton.
Big Bill Norton was missing today. They held their will, but I think that secondary, it could be a glaring issue down the line, especially on these big plays. There's no reason a team like Stanford that has no fluidity on offense whatsoever. They don't even have a quarterback. They were rotating Daniels and Lamson the good majority of that game. And there's no reason that a team like that should be going out there on 3rd and 15, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 8, and converting those big plays that they did. The only reason that happened was because of Gunnar Maldonado, and that's not a good thing.
By the way, I'm not going to brag too much because I'm generally wrong about everything. Credit to Mike for calling it with Fifita's poise before the season began. Even the simple slide after a first down, the simple slide. Exactly. That's what we like to see. Again, when you have as much talent as there is on this team, you don't need to go out there and try to play hero ball, run around 45 yards, and then chuck it out of bounds. Take what the defense gives you, take the easy pass, and you will be rewarded for it. That is 100% what needs to happen here for the University of Arizona Wildcats and Mr. Noah Fifita.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, the one thing that people keep saying about JDL is he's got this arm strength. Yeah, he's got a cannon. He can throw the deep ball. He just can't connect on the deep ball very often. Mm-hmm. So I'm more than willing to take 10 to 15-yard passes and just, essentially, and we saw that play that she threw the touchdown pass to the tight end. Justin Spears did a great job putting up the exact same play by Shanahan. Guess what? Shanahan's offense. Brock Purdy ain't throwing 70-yard touchdown passes.
It's not pretty, is it? Yeah.
Jimmy G did not throw 70-yard touchdown. But guess what they do? They hit Deebo Samuel underneath. They hit Brandon Ayuk underneath. They find the tight end. Oh, wait. Christopher McCaffrey's operating in space. You can run that with any. I'm not saying Arizona's players are as good as those guys, but you can run that offense. It is a grinded, not even say grinded out, but it is a high volume, efficient offense, which is what Arizona has done when they've scored. But the problem is all too often they're stalling somewhere between the 35 and the 50. So that's what you need. And so if Fifita can be that guy, spread the ball around, get those 5 yards. And, today he was 11 yards per completion, but if he can be 7 yards per completion, no turnovers, occasionally make a big play on third and down, I'll take it. Because I think, again, Just get the ball in the hands of some of these guys, and eventually you're going to get some big plays with their legs, not with your arm strength.
Also, one thing we need to see more of, and I'm going to keep calling for this, we need to see more Fam out there. Fam, when he gets the ball, has a little bit of a burst, a little bit of explosion that nobody else does. I would like to see Fam and Jonah Coleman, obviously, we'll get to him. I would like to see Fam, again, get 7 to 8 to 9 to 10 touches per game, because when he touches the ball, things happen. He's got a burst that nobody else on this team has. I also want him returning kicks. I don't want Cowing returning kicks. I don't know why he's doing that to even begin with. Have Fam do all of that stuff right there. I say free Fam.
Yeah, I think when you have somebody like him who's as quick and elusive and all those things you just said, Mike, there's got to be a spot for him on the field. To me, it's returning kicks, especially Cowing. I think he's already doing so much. And you saw today, I just think it was a mental fart or whatever you want to call it, running out of bounds there on the kickoff. But they just have a couple of players, whether it's Cowing or Wiley, and it seems like from a utilization standpoint, they just want to use those guys as much as possible when there's really no need to. You've got a bunch of guys to rotate, and I get in the backfield, it's hard to take carries away from somebody like Wiley when he's healthy. Hopefully he'll be okay. But yeah, somebody like him, I think you can get involved in special teams. I think you can split him out. I think he's a great back. You know, after the catch, he can get a lot of yards, kind of like what Brad was alluding to there with the Niners offense. So there's lots of ways and lots of different routes to go about how do you use these different guys. And, you know, I think as the season goes on, they're going to figure out how to do that.
You can, and you know what, if you're really worried about the ball control, here's what you do. You do what the U of A used to do. If they're punting from the 35 to the other, 40, put Cowing inside the 20. If they're kicking from further back, put the speedster out there. Because remember, UA used to do that with Ryan Eidson. He'd catch anything punt that was going to be inside the 20, he'd field. And then it was either Steptoe or Thomas. I think it was Steptoe would be the guy who's fielding the punt at the 30 and try to make something happen. You can do that with those two guys if you want. If you're worried about them fumbling inside the 10, okay, don't let them field punch inside the 10. You let Cowing do that. But, go for broke a little bit when you're fielding a punt at the 35-yard line.
All right. By the way, Ben White just sent me a message. Very funny. The term is brain fart, not mental fart. But the only reason that I thought about that was because of the Del Taco question. How's Del Taco tonight? I have not had Del Taco today. I will not have Del Taco. I am going on a Del Taco fast for the next 24 hours.
Somebody on Twitter had Del Taco yesterday, and they were hating on it. I wasn't too happy about that.
I'm sorry. When Brian Peterson is eating Del Taco through a mask, it is going to affect the caliber of the taste of the food.
All the sauce is going to get off all the juiciness, right? You're just
you can't eat
dry
food
patty
through
at that
a COVID
point.
mask. It doesn't work like that. So anyways, that BJP, that's a whole other story right there. Also, Shady Rays. Now, look at these two established young men right here. William Brad Allis and Ben One White. Both of these guys are awesome people, and you can tell that they are cool people. And guess what? I guarantee you that they have Shady Rays somewhere in there. Check it out, Shady Rays. Now, let me find the read right here. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. All right. All right. I want to touch on that sounds terrible. I want to discuss Fam here just for a second, and then we're going to get back to Jonah Coleman here because I think that there's something about it. This offense, for whatever reason, does not have a ton of explosivity. Is that a word? Explosivity?
It can be.
It is now.
It doesn't matter. But when you've got Fam out there, that's the dude that, again, you want him returning kicks. You need him in the backfield. Again, I say 10 carries or 10 touches. Also, Jonah Coleman's that dude. I get that Michael Wiley is solid. Totally get it. Jonah Coleman is somebody that I'd like to see start getting the ball 20 times a game. It won't happen. I get it because of all the backs, but Jonah Coleman is really, really good, fellas.
Yeah. I mean, and so's Michael Wiley. Let's be honest. Wiley's a good back too. That's why I think you got to find ways to get these guys the ball. And I'm perfectly fine. And by the way, can we go? Did you see that catch? Coleman's catch on the sideline? The ball throw?
Yeah.
That's a big, he's not tall. but that dude is thick. That's like a bowling ball going up and getting a ball way over his head. Get these
Built
guys.
like William Brad Ellis.
He is built like I wish I was built back in
Oh,
back in the
Brad,
day.
come on.
In fact, is he just a bigger version of Warrick Dunn? Maybe. But yeah, let's get these guys the ball in space. Let's pass to them. I like DJ Williams too. I think he's okay, but those three guys you mentioned all need the ball more.
Right. I would tend to agree with that one right there. Now, but it's a good thing to have right there. The offensive line. Obviously we're happy to see our guy Polito in there. Hope everything's okay. He went down a few times right there. But what I was also a little disappointed with is against Stanford. And again, I think it's going to be a little bit different moving forward if Noah Fifita is your starter. But this was also a game that I would have just liked to have seen the Lions just beat Stanford up on, because again, Stanford was this is not your father's Stanford team. This is not your older stepbrother's Stanford team. This is a bad Stanford team. I was hoping that Arizona was just going to be able to beat them up. Maybe they could have done that with Noah out there. I don't know, but that was a little bit of a drawback for me as well, fellas.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges they had early on was establishing the run, and I'm not going to say the offensive line had a bad game, but definitely a disappointing game compared to what they did the first three. I just think that maybe at the line of scrimmage, that level of physicality from Stanford was a little bit better than they anticipated. And as a result, it kind of threw their game plan out of whack, which is why you saw JDL resorting to throwing the ball so much on the zone, right? Obviously on the read, you make the wrong reads, right? And that's kind of what happens. The offense falls apart. And that's what you saw today. But for the most part, Arizona has better guys up front when they're healthy. The Polito injury sucks. I know he got going. He made his debut. He had to come out a couple of times. But for the most part, you've got a really good foundation on both sides of those lines when everybody's in and playing. Now, against Washington, will it matter much? Probably not. Against USC, will it matter much? Probably not. But Arizona can win games at the line of scrimmage. And I guess what's refreshing about it is that's the first time you've been able to say that in seems like quite a while.
Do you worry about, and I'm having some people ask this, what do you guys think? If Jedd Fisch were to start JDL next week, does he risk to start losing the fan base?
I don't think so. Because I think the average fan is still probably not out on him. But I think, yeah, again, if Washington comes in and he can put up 28 on Washington and you lose 42-28 or something, then I don't think that. But if he does what he did today and you're only putting up 10-14, then yeah, I think the fans are going to be clamoring for Noah Fifita.
Well, because the other thing too is that Noah, let's be honest here. And I realize that the backup quarterback is everybody's favorite person, but no, JDL's been bad this year. JDL was terrible against Mississippi State. He was awful in this game, obviously. Those are probably two games.
Wasn't good against NAU either.
It wasn't good against NAU. Yeah, it wasn't good against NAU. He's been bad. And I think at some point, people start wondering a little bit about accountability to a certain degree, because again, I mean, and again, I'm a big fan of Jedd Fisch. I'm all in on Jedd Fisch. I'm just speaking on this one. But when you say that, well, we can't play Speedy or, because he's got some fumbling issues or whatever, when JDL has been terrible for 3.5 games, at some point you start wondering, why is this guy not being held to the same account that anybody else on the team is? Granted, I know that it's a quarterback, but I still think that that's something that I think would probably rub some people the wrong way there, Ben One White.
Well, we're getting to a point, right, in the season where you're going to play 7 straight ranked teams, at least for the time being. So what we talked about earlier, right, black and white, if there's an argument to be made either way, JDL is his guy. He's sticking with JDL. He's put a lot of work into JDL. But if JDL is literally losing you the game, then they're going to have to make a change. And I think it's different. I think with the Rich Rod situation, when you say the fans being out or turning against him, totally different situation, because Rich Rod was on the hot seat at the time. And somebody like Jedd, obviously not in that situation. But I think the JDL thing is interesting. I think if he's healthy, will he probably start? Yeah, I think he will. But will he be playing in the second half of that game? I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, Brad.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe he caught a break too. That the injury is just bad enough, and you start Fifita and you say, we're just going to rest JDL. We want to make sure he's okay 100%. And then if Fifita goes out and balls out against Washington, then you got an easy transition with saving JDL some face. But I don't know. Again, Jedd has done some things personnel wise that are baffling and some that make perfect sense. And this, so again, Gunnar Maldonado still out there. So I don't know. I'm reserving judgment on what Jedd will do with personnel.
Yes. All right. Jacob, many people have asked if Keck is actually Jacob Franklin behind the scenes. We can assure you that Jacob Franklin is not Keck. Jacob Franklin, would you like to join the live stream right here? There is no reason that you cannot join the live stream right here.
I am not Keck. I'm here at Illegal Pete's. I comment from the PHNX account, so I am not Keck.
Okay. That's why we call Jacob Franklin the leader of men right there. All right. Thanks, Jacob. You're dismissed. Now back to the defense right here. We got to talk about it though. Again, the D line, we got to give Taylor Upshaw a lot of credit right here. This D line is good, fellas. I mean, again, I don't know at what level good it is, but this defensive line is good. And it's been probably a long time since we've been able to say that there, fellas. Smirk, smirk.
Yeah, they are. And obviously everybody wants size. That's the shiny object in the room. That's the popular subject. Well, size. But you've got to have quality too. Someone tried that a little bit towards the end, and you just got a bunch of big dudes in there that couldn't do a whole lot of anything. Guys that schools didn't want, grad transfers, etc. But when you've got guys like Big Bill Norton, I'll say it right this time for you, Mike.
Thank you. All right, Tony Clifton right in here. We missed Big Bill Norton. Yes.
We did. But when you guys got like him who come from Michigan, you've got other guys who come from viable options that you haven't seen in the past. This is what you get. I mean, you get a defensive line that can make plays, that can put pressure on the quarterback. Today, I think the scheming was a little bit different. They were more rushing three at times than they have, I think, throughout the first few games. But these defensive line, point being, they can keep Arizona in games when the offense is in disarray like we saw today. And as long as they can keep them in games and hold their own, it makes you pretty confident about Arizona's chances against some of these opponents in the Pac-12, because you're going to need a lot of things to go your way. And this is the first time where you can look at this Arizona team and say, yeah, I'm not really worried about the defense. I went into the half of this game just collecting thoughts and talking with some people. I know Gunnar is a hot topic. I know the secondary is a hot topic. They could have played a little bit better. But I was talking with somebody, and I just said, I'm not worried about the defense. I want to talk about this offense being stagnant. I want to talk about JDL.
Who are you talking to, Ben? Be honest. Who are you talking to? Were you talking to Jacob Franklin?
Possibly you, Mike Luke, or one of the other three people who we talk with throughout the game. You never know. But point being, not worried about the defense, and that's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think you have to credit to the whole front six. The linebackers played well again, too. I think my dog is moving around behind me. Flo had some moments. Manu had some moments. The front six is good. The young cornerbacks are talented, but they're going to have some growing pains, and we saw that a little bit today. The safeties are still a big concern. But, yeah, that front six is solid. You just have to make sure now, next week, that back five is going to get tested, because Penix is really good. He could just be. They put up points, and they're talented, and they spread the ball around too. It's not just one or two receivers, and it seems like they've got 9 or 10 of them. I know it's really not that many, but yeah, that Washington offense is really good.
Irish Mike, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here, Irish Mike. Now, again, it's all relative, obviously. And Irish Mike, very good person, by the way. Many people think I am Irish. I am not Irish, but my name is Mike. I think it's impossible not to be impressed by the defense this year. I mean, listen, Gunnar Maldanado stinks. We know that. But other than that, the D line is much improved. The linebacker play has been good. The corners are good. I don't have much to nitpick. Now, granted, against Washington's probably a national title contender, so I'm not going to really, dispute that. But overall, if you were to tell me that this would be the defense through 4 games, I would 10,000% take this. And overall, I got to give this unit an A grade right here, fellas.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, they've gone beyond what I thought they'd be this year. And I thought they'd be better, but they, for the most part, they're not letting teams run all over them. They're not giving up huge plays. And I know there were a few big plays tonight, and Stanford ran the ball better than the last few have, but this defense last year would have given up 200 yards on the ground to UTEP and given up probably 24 points. Right. They didn't. So Are they dominant? No. Is this the reincarnation of Desert Swarm? No. But it might be the reincarnation of some of those better Stoops defenses, which were very solid. Except if you had a mobile quarterback who could keep the play alive, and then they were awful. But no, it's a good defense. Is it a great defense? Not yet.
No.
But is it good enough that if Arizona becomes a B-plus offense, they're going to steal a few games? Yes.
Look,
are they going to win you a game by themselves? You're not going to beat someone 17-14. But you might be able to beat a pretty good team 28-24.
Let me ask you this, and real quick, because I'm curious as to your guys' take on this, both because you're both smarter than me, obviously. Now, but first, no better time to become a PHNX diehard. Go to gophnx.com. Listen, the great Anthony Gimino is in here writing stuff. Anthony, the man of all seasons. Very good, though. Great writing, newsletters, all that stuff. You got Discords, you got merch. You probably get a little bit closer to Jacob Franklin at the same time as well. Check it out, though. Go PHNX. No better time to become a diehard as well. By the way, you guys want to hear my Anthony Gimino impression about the game today? This is very, very good. You'll like this. Well, it's really tough to take much away from it. You know, obviously the young man played well in Noah Fifita, but I also can't sit here and say that a quarterback change should be made, because that would be wildly inappropriate on my part. But I do think that there's a lot of talent out there on the team, and I'm excited and enthused to see what the possible next outcome would be. But again, we can't really make any judgments on the season so far. Quote from Anthony Gimino right there. How good was that quote there, Ben One White?
I think the end point is spot on, but I think the lead up to that, you're doing Anthony a little dirty there. He's not that dry.
I'm just kidding with AG. Brad Alice, did you like this impression or not?
It was fine.
All right, fair enough. That's fine as no.
So Anthony, for those who've spoken with Anthony, Anthony doesn't have a very obvious thing about him.
Do I?
You know, fam, Del Taco. No, Shu and I have some very obvious things. Our good friend Steve Rivera. Rivera's very dry and monotone at times. If you're going to do Ben, just do a Jeff Tate from Queensryche impersonation. But Anthony, with the occasional, he'll raise the voice a little. He's hard to impersonate. I think it's easier to almost do him in print because he has a pretty unique writing style. But I think we've got other people on the PHNX guest spot that are easier to impersonate than Anthony Gimino.
Let me ask you this, Brad. Is Arizona 4-0 if Noah Fifita is the starter? Yay or nay? Anthony would not answer that question.
Probably, because I don't think they turn over the ball 5 times. I'm not sure he makes as many big plays against Mississippi State, but he probably doesn't put Arizona in a hole either.
Ben?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And even if he doesn't make as many big plays, he's not in a position where he needs to make those plays because Arizona is able to move the ball pretty effectively.
And see, that's the thing I keep coming back to. You have good players around here. This isn't 2 years ago where you were throwing to, converted quarterbacks and, the things like that. You have got players on there now that are NFL type guys. All right, Keck. By the way, Keck, I actually like you, but you know what? This is all nonsense right now. When you keep saying that Arizona at best is going to be 4-8 or 3-9, there are wins to be had there, my friend. By the way, we had somebody else in here that said, this was actually very, very good, where he said, Arizona is 3-1 since I became a PHNX diehard AZ Wildcat fan. We appreciate that right there. That is very, very good news. All right, now looking ahead to looking ahead a little bit to Washington. That's obviously going to be a very, very tough game for the University of Arizona. I will not pretend that it is not, but I will say this: every now and then, Arizona does. It happens every season. There's always 1 or 2 games where they're like an 85-point underdog, and they're somehow tied midway through the third quarter, and they're down 3 midway through the fourth. Could this possibly be the game?
Washington?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, come on, Ben. I can tell you're on the fence about it. Come on, let the inner Ben White come out.
Definitely not. Maybe USC because we'll be there. Maybe USC.
Right, for sure. All right, what say you, Brad Alice?
I'm still picking Washington to win the league. So I'll say no. I agree. I think I think Washington might be a more complete team than USC. So I think I could see Arizona taking advantage of some defensive liabilities, maybe even a guy who wore that uniform a year ago. So I think if they're going to steal a game from one of the better teams, I think it's probably either USC or Utah, who didn't look great today. I just think I think Washington is maybe the best team in the Pac-12, and B, just seems to be a matchup nightmare for Arizona.
Right. Ben, you're generally the guy that calls for the upset. You incorrectly thought that Colorado would beat Oregon. This did not occur.
Oh, sure.
But Ben One White, this is your chance. Are you calling the upset against Washington?
I am not calling the upset against Washington. Our guy Chris Broussard, who was wrong about everything, he called for Colorado to beat Oregon, my friend.
Chris Broussard, who also said that LeBron James would not be leaving Miami and would be coming back, and never apologized for that. All right, now, by the way, Lori Saldana, I like this. This is very good right here. Going to go celebrate this win at the candy store. Is the candy store still open, Brad Ellis?
I don't know.
I just wanted to ask you about
I'm an old man with kids.
All right. Now
I'm assuming, and I'm not even sure I'm assuming the candy stores has nothing to do with candy, or I'm assuming there may be a girl named Candy there, but I have no idea.
What do we think about the DBs outside of Gunnar Maldonado? Are we okay with everything we've seen so far this season?
They're fine. They're not great, but they have the potential. I think Price Hawk and Takario Davis have the chance to be a really good duo a year from now. It's a good unit. It's not a great unit, but again, they're not giving up big plays in man-to-man coverage. Usually the big plays are those, they take advantage of the zone. Someone misses a tackle, someone slips and falls. And, so I'm not worried about, are they great? No. But are they talented? Yes.
They're young too. Yeah, they're young. They're young. They're talented. They've got upside, and the defensive line helps them out too, because when you're able to stop the run, when you're able to get pass rush, you're not putting them in such vulnerable positions like we saw with Sumlin and Rich Rod, where a lot of these DBs, some of them had talent, but they just had absolutely no chance because opposing teams were just chugging the ball down the field left and right. I think they'll be okay. Somebody like Isaiah Taylor, who's getting his rotation, I think he could turn into something maybe. I'm not too worried about it. The only glaring red flag, like you've talked about, Mike, is Maldonado, because he's just flat out giving away plays and giving away touchdowns and giving away points for the other team. But outside of that, there's nobody where you look at them and say, yeah, they're a liability.
Right. Oh, by the way, one of these super chats. We like these super chats. Keep them coming here. $2 super chat for the candy store right there. Right there. Maybe get some sugar at the candy store. Check it out.
We can share that with our buddy Brad Alice. He can go after the show.
I was going to say, don't act like Brad isn't leaving his the haunted Marana to go down to the candy store off of Mike, can you rap? Jacob Franklin, this is all right. All right. I'm going to do it. Who should I rap today? Because I'm a very good rapper. All right, I'm gonna do. You know what? I'm gonna do Eminem. I'm usually doing Bone Thugs or Tupac.
That was gonna be my request, Eminem.
I'm gonna do Eminem right here. His palms are sweaty from mom's spaghetti. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti. He's nervous and ready, but when he looks, he sees mom's spaghetti. I can keep going about mom's spaghetti. How good was that?
It's the effort that counts.
That was very
good. That sounded like Shoe. That sounded like Shoe trying to rap.
Or it's the thuggish, ruggish bone. All right, very, very
Mike,
good. Mike,
you are the Gunnar Maldonado of white boy rappers.
Rap.
No, I'm very good. I'm very, very good. Jacob Franklin is laughing behind the scenes right there. All right, now.
But is he laughing with you or at you?
Oh, no. This is very good. People have never liked my singing or my rapping. I don't understand. All right, OGs, real quick. You might have just heard all this nonsense and said, man, I need some OGs right here. You're correct. That was the segue right there. Now, check out our friends at OG's Brands for yourself and try one or a few of their many delicious flavors. Check them out across all socials at OG's Brands and online at ogsbrands.com. To find them at the local dispensary near you, you must be 21 years or up to enjoy responsibly. Okay. Now, all right. His palms are sweaty. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit before we sign off here. Overall, I think this is almost the game that needed to happen. Again, And again, JDL is not a bad quarterback for sure. And you know what? He's a college kid, obviously. So we're just talking about strictly on the field right here. But I do believe that I do believe that it should be Noah Fifita's time. And if this was the game that really needed to happen, I think that this was a good move for the U of A right here. Ben One White, Brad Alice, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, you may look back and this may be the game where either Arizona goes to a bowl or they don't, and it's because of this game and what happens. Obviously disappointing the way that it played out. You should be beating Stanford a lot more than you did today. But again, sometimes when a guy gets injured, it's another guy's opportunity. And if Fifita can kind of ride that hot hand, it'll be interesting. I think we'll learn more as the week goes on in terms of how serious the injury is. If JDL is able to go, my prediction is that he will go against Washington. He'll play in the first half. He'll get his opportunity. But if they're in a situation where they're flat out being held back because of him, or they're not in the game mostly because of him, I could see them definitely turning back to Fifita, or vice versa. If JDL is hurt, you ride with Fifita, you ride with the hot hand, and the coaching staff kind of just goes, well, there's nothing we can do. The guy's playing well. So to me, this really could be the turning point or the storyline of the season. And you just hope Arizona finds a way to come out on top. You hope they find a way to get it together, especially from an offensive standpoint. Thought the defense played well, a little shorthanded tonight. There are some things to clean up, but this game, as boring and as painful as it was to watch, it could look back and we could turn back and it could be a very eventful matchup for sure.
Brad Alice?
Yeah, we're going to find out one way or another whether this was the game that told us that Arizona's just not as good as we thought they were, and this is what Arizona is, or it's going to be the game that springboards them to something, and they say, okay, we got away with one. We survived. That we did here what we could not do in Starkville. So I don't know which way it is. This could be the final. Maybe this is the game that kicks JDL in the butt, and he comes out and he's a more efficient quarterback.
I would gladly,
or it's the beginning of the Fifita era. And
Sure.
Again, so I think this is an important game. Unfortunately, I just don't know which way it goes.
I would gladly sit here if he drops if Jayden de Laura drops 500 yards and 8 touchdowns against Washington State. I will gladly have an entire post-game show making fun of myself in the process right there. So again, this is all about getting back at me. I would love to be the jester in all of this. All right, now, but we're still going bowling. I don't care what anybody says. Arizona's not losing the next 7 games. All right, now, we got to bring Jacob Franklin in here real quick because Jacob Franklin was the one that said that he wanted me to rap. This is true, Jacob Franklin.
It is true. I said that it was in the comments. Literally everybody could see it, Mike.
What did you think about my performance right here? Did I step up to the plate?
It was a little more undisciplined than USC's being right now. 6 penalties for 35 yards in the first quarter.
That's why we call Jacob Franklin the GOAT. Jacob, we appreciate you, man. All right. Oh, no, we don't need any USC ASU updates. All right, everybody. All right, we're going to sign off here. I'm going to get some cool shorts coming out of this, though, tomorrow. Now, lots of spaghetti for sure, mom's spaghetti. But for the great Ben White, for the illustrious Brad Alice, for the incredibly tall Jacob Franklin, I am the short Mike Luke. I'll tell you what, we will be back with you coming up. Appreciate all of you on here making this chat all about you guys, making it helping us be better than we should. Even you, Keck. All right. On that note, we'll be back with you. You have been listening to the AZ Wildcats postgame.